Yes, thank you. I think my talk nicely connects with the two previous speakers, but I will really focus on the policy side. I'm asking the question if complexity theory can provide a policy framework that supplements previous ones. Now, I will talk about two previous policy frames, market failure, system failure, and then I'll go into complexity view by stressing growth as a process of related diversification, so very much in line with Professor Petroniero. Then I'll go into some other empirics that have been put forward recently, and then the implications for policy. I think if I would have to sum up the market failure policy paradigm, it's about market failures due to risk in investing in research and development, as well as appropriability issues, so not being able to appropriate all the returns to your investment. Now, if you look at the evidence, for example, in the Netherlands, there's a meta-study on how much do R&D subsidies really increase private R&D. It's only marginal, okay? So there's a lot of crowding out going on. It is always presented as a generic policy, and in that sense could be seen as a good policy because a policymaker does not know where the opportunities lie. But in fact, most of these R&D subsidies goes to larger firms and firms in manufacturing where it's easy to prove you do formal R&D. So services are a bit out of the equation here. And then there is the patent puzzle. We see patent production going up very much the last 20, 30 years, but productivity growth, if anything, has slowed down. So at the very kind of macro level, the connection seems to be lost. Now, if you then think about the innovation system framework, then people would say, well, maybe it's not just about market failures, it's also about how to connect all the actors in the innovation system. So a lot of innovation may not come about because universities, firms, consumers, financial institutions, government itself do not coordinate all their actions. Now, this has been very much reduced to what I would call the triple helix argument, that universities should work closer to industry and government should provide the incentives. And this was very much, I think, the result of, I think it was an OECD report in '95 that pointed out the European paradox. So it was said that Europe was excellent in science, but not good in innovation. So it was not a matter of increasing money for research, but improving the connection between research and innovation. But if you look at the evidence, it may be even worse. It may even be so that science is also lagging in Europe. And that may be the reason why we lack in innovation. So there has been debate about, is there really a European paradox, or is the science itself not good enough? And in general, I would say we should not overemphasize the role of science in innovation. Very often, innovation is prompting developments in science rather than the other way around. Major scientific discoveries have only been possible due to technological innovation preceding them. Plus, we have the whole service sector where scientific research is hardly relevant. Okay, then I go to complexity theory, the theme of this workshop, and how it can maybe contribute to a new frame in innovation policy. Now, for me, the starting point is very much what the previous speaker said, that in the long run, growth is only sustainable if countries move into new products and services with higher value added. And this leads to an ever-increasing variety of products and services at the worldwide scale, but also in most countries. So what do most countries do? They diversify into related products as to exploit the existing knowledge they have. Okay, and because of this local process of producing one product, then going to the next related product, creates a growth process that's highly path dependent. It also means that if you are somewhere in the product space with very little opportunities to diversify into related products, like some of these natural resource based countries, you are basically stuck. Now, how can we understand this? Well, we can understand growth then as an ongoing process of related diversification in a complex and itself evolving technology space. Now, there have been various ways to map this technology space. So this is the one that Hildago came up with, already referred to, using export data, looking how often two products are exported together in the same export portfolio. And here you see a clear core and a big periphery. So as a country, you want to be in that core because that provides you with all kinds of recombinatorial possibilities to diversify and to move into higher value-added products. But this is a fairly kind of, this is one way to map it. You can also have more direct ways of mapping it. For example, Frank Nefke for Sweden, he looked at which products were co-produced in the same factory. Okay, and then you really know if there is a technological relatedness. And later on, he looked at labor mobility flow. So how many people change jobs between two industries? And that he called skill relatedness. And then people also looked in patents that are co-classified in technology classes. And if many patents are co-classified in two classes, these classes are related. And then they can map also the technological evolution of here the US over time. Now, what all these, and then Petronero has another method to map these technology spaces. Now, what all these methods can show is that the structure of these technology spaces is very predictive of the growth path of regions, countries, cities, you name it. So what's the evidence? Well, related diversification is indeed the rule. Okay, so new export specializations very often are those that are related, very closely related to what countries already export. We also see the rise and fall of new industries at the regional level. Nefke showed this for Sweden. We see it in the patent portfolios that new technologies pop up closely related to technologies countries already produce. And the same for scientific topics if you look at publication data. Now, what we also can ask the question, how come that some countries or some regions are able to diversify in an unrelated domain? So how can they make jumps in this technology space, which in themselves are rare, but still they happen? Well, there is some evidence that it depends on your institution. So some type of institutions that make business more risk taking, promote unrelated diversification, and also the type of social capital that's in your country. If it's social capital that connects people that themselves are active in different communities, then you can bring together unrelated knowledge. But if it's social capital, so-called bonding social capital, then ideas are not connected. There's also some evidence, which I showed with Castaldi and Bartlos, is that it also depends on what kind of variety you have in your region in this case. So related variety is very good to produce new knowledge because you can easily combine related technologies. But unrelated technologies can produce true breakthroughs, okay? Because then you make things related that were previously unrelated. So that's something you can get out of the patent data. And then there are some case studies that show that a state, a multinational or migrant entrepreneurs, they are typically the ones that bring in the resources or the knowledge from some outside source to a region to diversify in a new direction. Now, so this is about the evidence. So what then about policy? Well, one question you can ask is, should you aim for variety or should you aim for specialization? And this is especially in economic geography a pretty old debate. Well, if you would look at those complex technology spaces, you would say neither. So what you have to aim for is, yes, variety, because that creates new combinatorial possibilities, but it should be varieties that can be recombined, okay? And a second advantage of related variety is that it makes your economy more resilient to shocks, because if a shock hits a certain industry, people are laid off, but they can be easily absorbed in sectors that are technologically related. So rather than thinking of resilience in terms of unrelated variety, which is the financial way of spreading risk, you may have to think about it in terms of related variety. However, maybe related variety comes naturally, okay? What do firms do? They go and look for opportunities in related knowledge domains. So the process of related diversification is a rather natural one. So what's then the policy rationale? Well, for me, there are three, and we can go back to the previous policy frames. There is still a market failure argument, because the first entrepreneur that discovers a related technology has potential for a certain country or region, needs to be compensated for the risk it took and the information it creates to all its fellow entrepreneurs that then enter the bandwagon. So that's Roderick's first argument for industrial policy. His second argument is that these same entrepreneurs also change institutions. Okay, to make new markets, you have to create institutions to have those market functions: regulatory institutions, quality assurance institutions, labor market institutions, and so forth. Again, the first entrepreneurs have to be rewarded for that, for their institutional work, where all the others profit from. And then I think there's a third argument put forward by Matthijs Jansen, and he's saying that there is still a policy possible that departs from the related diversification argument, and that is to say that if you are very competent in sectors or technologies that themselves are unrelated, you can still try to make them related. Okay, so you can really try new combinations, and if you do that among even 3 or 4 technologies you're strong at, there's a very low probability that other countries happen to be strong in all those 3 or 4 technologies as well, so you can really create a sustained competitive advantage. So my final slide is to point to 2 challenges, okay? And the first one may be a reaction to the first talk. So if you would convince policymakers to go more into the direction of related diversification, call it, then there is a risk they will resort to almost classic industrial policy. But one that uses these very sophisticated relatedness maps that we produce for them. Because we are able to map out what are promising new technologies or industries, given their capabilities and given what other countries are doing. But we always, I think, have to remind ourselves that statistical representations of technologies are very misleading in many ways. For example, if you use patent data, a lot of technologies never patented, a lot of patents are never turned into innovations. Even if you use export data, as was already mentioned, you may be able to derive a relatedness map from that, but you don't know exactly why they are related. Is it institutions? Is it knowledge? Is it infrastructure? Is it something else? A second caution would be vested interests. And so if you want to pursue such a policy, and you have existing industries at the table to discuss what are the possibilities for the sectors for related diversification, they may be very able to influence those agendas in a way they would already pursue as a firm themselves. So the additionality of policy can be low if you have vested interest, discuss the opportunities for related diversification. So 3 ways to counteract this could be focus more on entrepreneurs rather than incumbents, focus more on cross-sectional connections rather than on one sector, and focus more on societal challenges, so what problems should be solved rather than which technologies provide opportunities for diversification. So I'll leave it at this, and I hope we have some time for discussion.
Thank you very much for also...
But please thank our panelists.